Hello everyone and welcome back to day 9 on the job site. Yesterday we got all the trusses installed and we started sheeting, but it was the wrong plywood. So while we did the fascia on the other house, somebody ripped that whole row off and now we're here starting over again. But today we're going to get this sheeted up as high as we can go. We're going to start putting some runners on the top of the trusses, and then we can install our cap set or the peak trusses. We get all that done and then we also do about a row or two of sheeting on the other house. But with that, we got a lot of plywood to run today, so let's get started. I know I put a lot of fast forward in my videos just because these are long work days, but I will put slower parts in on this video so you kind of catch more of the pace that we're working with. I also forgot to mention on the last video, those spacer blocks that we have in between the trusses, they are just temporary. We do end up knocking them out so then we could get our trusses at the right layout. I just want to let you know that they're not permanent. They help when you set the trusses, but after that, they're kind of a nuisance. But yeah, make sure you're nailing everything thoroughly on layout. Make sure you're nailing down into the fascia, because we gotta all walk on this. This roof is about a 6 or a 7 pitch, so it's not that hard to walk on. Once you get steeper, around 10 or a 12 pitch, we have these cleat boards at the bottom, so that if anything happens, you could always step on that. The first row is always sketchiest because you're right by the edge, but after that it gets pretty easy. We got two of the guys getting the sheets in place for me, and then I'd nail it all off. Of course, we all do take turns doing each of these tasks. We build so many houses, so at the end of the day, we all just revolve around doing what we feel like that day. I personally prefer to sheet a manually framed roof. When you get these trusses, since they're 2 foot apart, you have to use those clips. That makes it a lot harder to insert the sheets, and it's just a problem all around. Of course, the clips won't start until the second row, but eventually you'll see some instances of where it becomes an issue. And then while we sheet, we got some guys doing some of the inside work. They'll be doing nailer blocks, spacer blocks, and braces to make sure all the trusses are in the correct spot. A few of these trusses at this end correspond with the dormer that's at the front of the house, so they are kind of off layout compared to the other trusses, so we end up having to take the sheet off and split it on a different truss. I'm using my little nail puller flat bar. It's not really good for pulling nails. Instead of pulling the full sheet off, it looks like we just cut it back at a different truss. You gotta watch out for the sawdust though on the roof. That is pretty much your worst enemy. It's really slippery. My shoes grip pretty good though. And here we are starting the second row. The clips grip tight like they should this time.
Right there? Yep.
It always felt so weird to me making so much noise at about 6, 7 a.m. in the morning. Since they don't want to hold up the lift all day holding the plywood for us, we do end up building a temporary platform on these roofs. That way we could put all the plywood up there while they use the lift to go tackle some other hard parts of the house. It's just going to be a few pieces of 2x4 and 2x6 nailed directly through the roof. That's all it's going to take to hold a sizable stack of plywood that we could just keep refilling. Whenever somebody's moving by or has to walk through the roof, I always make sure to stop what I'm doing and make sure my hose is as low as possible so I don't trip anybody up. She knows just how to hold me, and when her head is dropping, her body is like open. I know she treats me slowly. She wears me down to the bones in bed. What feels like on my head? I said, oh, love me dead, love me dead. I was going, what? So, yeah, 6 by 1, deal with it. She moves through moving slowly. You want me to hold it while you go over there?
Dude, it's just a lot of sawdust right?
Yeah. See, when you're sheeting a manually framed roof, you're not going to have to deal with any of this nonsense. You just slap one sheet next to another and you're all good. Oh, and I personally use a stiletto hammer I got for about 75 bucks. Drop a comment and let me know what kind of hammer you guys use. I'm so used to fast forwarding my videos, honestly at normal rate it looks like I'm working in slow motion. Whoa, 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 whoa. You want this little guy right now? No.
45, 180.
Okay. I think the guys were using the gun, so I just manually nailed this with 8 pennies. We usually don't ever nail the outside gable truss until we're finished with the whole roof. When you attach the fly, you do have to adjust that in and out to make sure the fly is straight. So if you nail that, that could have some complications later. And then you can see our finished temporary plywood ramp. It's holding about 10 sheets at the moment, which is what was left on the basket. Here's where those temporary blocks become a bigger problem. Truss sheeting is also thicker and heavier than normal plywood, which is also one of the extra cons. I personally do like sheeting roofs, but it does get tired on your hand when you gotta hold that gun all day. As you see, we stagger each row up with a smaller and smaller piece. That makes sure that everything can still run on layout with having an even space between each break. The break being the seams or where two sheets come together. The gun jammed or spazzed out at this point and it was shooting at weird angles. You shouldn't really look at the gun like that until you disconnect the hose, but I've been working with these for a while, so there was just a loose nail in there that was messing things up. You can't see it really well, but the nail shot in at weird angles. It only shot in like a little bit, maybe a quarter inch, so I definitely had to pull these. Sometimes you'll nail a rafter or a truss good on layout, but then later you'll have to break the next row on it, so sometimes you just have to beat it so it breaks a little bit better. After this row, we can only sheet one more row up, and then we got to do the truss stringers for the piggyback trusses. Yeah, I'll keep shooting. Now we're on to what I would classify as the most annoying part, which would be the stringers. This is just going to be normal 2x4 lineal marked with a 2-foot layout. This will make sure that all these trusses stay on layout and in the right place, as well as create a sturdy base so we can nail all the cap set trusses on. Where one lineal ends and the other one starts, we put a block in between under it just so everything nails together and is tied in together better. You would think that after all this sheeting, these trusses would be sturdy, but once you get about a foot or two out there, they get super wobbly. But the first stringer we start about 10 or 12 inches in. After that, we have to put one every 10 to 12 inches, or whatever the code says. So when it's all said and done, we're going to have about 5 or 6 of these stringers running across these trusses. After that, it'll be a lot safer to walk on. Yeah, I watch it. Really? I'll think of the base. Those peaky blinders. Yeah, oh yeah, sorry, go. You're fine, it's fine. We're pushing it, we're pushing it. Oh, we're turning away. We're trying to post for here or something. I don't know. I'm just gonna small speed. Yeah, lower from it. Doesn't it? Okay, ouch. We're just waiting for the guy who's scribing the layout on the 2x4. think he's already. I think he already did. I think he already braced it. As he should. And as we shouldn't. Get your doofus. This one cooking. It's a 17 acre. Or 17 acre. Here I'm going to be popping one of our stringer lines so then it keeps an even spacing. And when I cut some of these spacer blocks, I'm going to just trace it and cut it again so I save a little bit of time. And then this is me doing some of the 2-foot layout for the trusses. Get the first layout correct, set a nail, hook it, and then mark 2 foot and go. And just a quick view of what we got done so far. Yeah, this part was definitely the most tedious. I definitely did not look forward to doing it twice for the other side. This is how I had to get down to use the bathroom since the lift was occupied so I could get to the nearest ladder. And with that, we're on to the next step, the cap set trusses. This will be the final peak for the main set of trusses until we add the other things like the dormer and the garage gables. As you can see, they're basically just little triangles. You basically just have to line them up to make sure that they're planing with the trusses below it, and then one nail at each end surprisingly keeps them up pretty sturdy. Eventually though, we do put nails at the bottom at each stringer. When you plywood over the seam area, you want to make sure that that's going to run smoothly and plane correctly. And then we get a little brace for the gable one just to make sure that it's standing up completely straight. We only had one gun for the moment, in which case I'm just hand driving my side, but eventually we get the pass load gun up there as well. Okay.
But yeah, just split that difference. It's got a little belt right here that's supposed to start different.
Okay.
But a little while we'll work on those before.
And with that, that's going to be the end of the cap set trusses. We're going to sheet up to the point where we can't any longer, and then we'll move on to the next house. Before we even started sheeting the roof, we did calculate where the plywood is going to break once we set these trusses. So ideally what we have is 2 foot on the bottom truss and 2 foot on the top cap set trusses, so it just ties it in together better. I don't got any extra. Come on, lift it up a little bit. Look good over there?
Yep.
And now we're going to make sure this other side gable is nice and plumb before we sheet that as well. After this row, all that's left is going to be a 2-foot rip. I don't believe I got the footage for it, but I do think it happens directly before the next house. For the rip, we make sure that it's 1.5 inches down below the peak of the trusses. That makes sure there's some breathing room for the ridge cap. And that just allows ventilation for the attic. So after we get that all finished, we moved on to the second house. I do believe we just sheet what we can just to finish the day out, and then we move back to the front of the house that we started today. So for the next video, we're going to sheet the full front of the first house that we started, as well as work on the dormer so you see what that's all about. And for those that don't know, a dormer is basically just a small structure that pops out of the roof line. It usually has a window which allows some light or headroom for the attic or the upper floors. So while we get these 2 rows of plywood on, I just want to give a huge thank you to everyone that's been watching and subscribing. We have about 18 days of work on this job, so we are only halfway through it. So if you've been liking what you've been seeing, make sure you definitely like and subscribe so then you can see all the different houses that we build in the future. Also drop a comment and let me know if you prefer to frame truss houses or normal houses. I personally don't like to use trusses at all. So once again, thank you to everyone for watching. As always, if you have any criticisms, tips, or feedback regarding my video or my work, definitely let me know in the comments. This is Old Dirty Carpenter, and I'll see you on the next day.
2번.